You've heard it 100 times. In the ancient world, people died at 30. Life was short and brutal. If you made it to 40, you were an old man, a village elder, ancient. By the standards of the past, you, right now, watching this, would already be living on borrowed time. It's one of the most repeated facts about human history. It shows up in textbooks, documentaries, casual conversation, and it's built on a number that is technically true. The average life expectancy for most of human history really was somewhere around 30, sometimes even less. So the fact checks out. The conclusion everyone draws from it is completely wrong, because ancient humans did not, as a rule, drop dead at 30. In fact, the world was full of people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. And once you understand the single statistical trick hiding inside that number, you'll never look at life expectancy the same way again. Let's start with the number itself, because it's real. Anthropologists studying ancient populations, hunter-gatherers, early farmers, ancient Romans, consistently find average lifespans hovering around the low 30s. The figure is genuine. The problem isn't the math. The problem is the word average, and specifically what it hides. Here's the thing almost nobody stops to consider. An average is just a single number stretched across a whole range of very different lives. And an average can be dragged in a direction that doesn't describe almost anyone in the group. To see how, we need to talk about the one thing that dominated ancient life more than war, more than famine, more than predators: child death. For most of human history, an enormous number of babies and young children died. Not a few, not a tragic handful, a staggering proportion. In many ancient and pre-modern populations, something like a quarter to a third of all children died before their first birthday, and roughly half of all children died before reaching the age of 10. Half. Think about what that does to an average. Imagine a small ancient community. Say 10 children are born, 4 of them die young, let's say around the age of 1, but the other 6 survive childhood and go on to live to 70. Now let's calculate the average lifespan of that group. You add it up. 4 lives of about 1 year and 6 lives of 70 years. Divide by 10 people, and the average comes out to around 43. Even in this example, where most people live to a ripe old age, the average is dragged down into the 40s by the deaths of the young. Push the child mortality a little higher, make the early deaths a little younger, and you can easily push that average down to 30. Not because 30 was a normal age to die, but because so many lives ended at 0. This is the trick. This is the entire illusion. Life expectancy at birth is not a prediction of how long a person will live. It's an average of everyone, including all the babies who died within days or weeks. Those tiny lifespans, all those zeros and ones, pull the average down with tremendous force. So when you read that ancient life expectancy was 30, that number is not telling you people died at 30. It's telling you so many children died that the average across everyone landed at 30. The adults who survived childhood are almost invisible in that single number, even though they might have lived for many more decades. So the real question isn't how long did ancient people live on average? The real question is the one that actually matters. If you survived childhood, how long could you expect to live then? And here the answer transforms completely. Once an ancient human made it past the deadly gauntlet of early childhood, say past the age of 15, their life expectancy shot up dramatically. The data on this is remarkably consistent across very different societies. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, who live in ways broadly similar to our ancient ancestors, show that the most common age of death for adults, the age adults were most likely to reach, wasn't 30 or 40. It was closer to 70. One influential analysis of hunter-gatherer populations found that for those who survived childhood, the average age at death was roughly 68 to 78 years. Not 30, 70. These are people with no hospitals, no antibiotics, no modern medicine of any kind, and yet if they cleared the hurdles of infancy and childhood, a long life was not the exception. It was the expectation. The same pattern shows up in the ancient civilizations we know well. Take ancient Rome, another society famous for its life expectancy of about 30. Yet Roman history is absolutely full of people who lived long lives. The Emperor Augustus died at 75. Consider the great figures of Greece and Rome, philosophers, statesmen, and writers who lived into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. Socrates was around 70 when he died, and he died by execution, not old age. The Roman Senate was, by definition, full of older men. If everyone was dropping dead at 30, who exactly was running the empire? The truth is, old age was a completely normal and recognized stage of ancient life. Every ancient culture we know of had words for the elderly, respected roles for grandparents, and expectations around aging. You don't develop rich traditions about elders if elders don't exist. And this points to something deeper, something that quietly rewrites the story of human survival itself. Old people weren't just present in ancient societies, they may have been essential to them. There's a powerful idea in anthropology sometimes called the grandmother hypothesis. The basic idea is this: humans are unusual in the animal kingdom because we have grandparents who live long past their own reproductive years and continue to help. In many species, animals reproduce until they die. But humans evolved to have a large population of older adults who no longer had young children of their own, and who instead poured their energy into helping their children raise grandchildren, and into something even more valuable: knowledge. Think about what an elder actually was in an ancient community. They were the memory of the group. They were the one who remembered the location of the water source that only fills during a drought that happens once every every 40 years. They remembered which plants were safe in a famine, how to treat a wound, where the game migrated, which stories held the group together. In a world with no writing, no books, no internet, a 70-year-old was a living library. Losing an elder wasn't just an emotional loss. It was like a library burning down. So elders weren't a rare, frail exception clinging to life. They were a recognized, valued, and evolutionarily important part of the human story. Which raises the obvious question. If reaching old age was so achievable, what was actually killing people who didn't make it? Because life was still dangerous. It just wasn't dangerous in the way the everyone dies at 30 myth suggests. The dangers were front-loaded and specific. The single biggest killer, as we've seen, was infancy and early childhood itself. Disease, infection, and the sheer fragility of the very young in a world with no modern medicine. The second great danger for women was childbirth. Giving birth without modern medicine carried real and repeated risk, and it claimed the lives of many women during their reproductive years. This is one reason men sometimes showed up as living slightly longer on average in some ancient populations. Then there were the accidents and infections that could turn deadly, a broken bone, a cut that turned septic, a hunting injury, all things a modern hospital would fix in an afternoon, but which could be a death sentence then. But here's the crucial point. These were risks, not guarantees. They were hurdles scattered across a life, and plenty of people cleared all of them. If you survived being born, survived childhood illness, survived childbirth if you were a woman, and avoided a fatal accident or infection, there was very little to stop you from growing genuinely old. Ancient humans didn't have some built-in expiration date at 30. Their bodies were capable of lasting just as long as ours, 70, 80, even 90 years. What they lacked wasn't longevity. It was the medical safety net that catches us when we fall into one of those hurdles. We didn't extend the maximum human lifespan very much at all. What modern medicine did was let far more people actually reach it. So the next time you hear that ancient humans died at 30, remember what that number really means. It doesn't mean life ended at 30. It means that so many lives ended at the very beginning that the average was pulled down to a figure that describes almost no actual adult. Behind that misleading number is a completely different world. A world where children died in heartbreaking numbers, yes, but also a world where those who made it through were surrounded by grandparents and elders, where a person could expect to grow old, tell stories to their grandchildren, and become the living memory of their people. Ancient humans didn't live short lives. Far too many of them lived tragically short ones, at the very start. But those who survived lived lives as long, as full, and as human as our own. The 30-year lifespan was never a limit on human life. It was a shadow cast by the deaths of the young. And the moment you see past it, the ancient world fills up, as it always truly was, with the old, the wise, and the gray.